Bhagwan, brethren! What's going on, everybody? We're going to do another review of Bob Marley One Love. Tune on in to hear Jonathan talk about the bumbleclots and all them fools out here talking about the movie. We're going to talk about all the music, the magic, the love. So tune on in and listen on in too. The first ones to die. Aye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die podcast. We hope you're having a great week. We know we are. My name is Jonathan, and I'm here with Alex and Jerome. How y'all doing today? Jerome, how you doing?
Doing good. Chilling. Yeah, I have nothing to report. Oh, I did start reading Bitch Planet. I finally bought it. So I would show you what's inside, but it is a very adult comic book.
Judging by the name,
but it's fun. Kelly Sudaconic is the writer. I like her writing. I also liked her writing for Wonder Woman Historia. So I'm excited to finish Bitch Planet. It's about a group of women that are taken to. It's a sci-fi comic in which there's a planet that outside of Earth that has been like constructed to be a prison for women who are criminals, and so it's about a group of women on said planet. But it is colloquially known as Bitch Planet, even though that's not the actual title. Yeah, so I'm excited to read it. But other than that, just been chilling, living life, working a lot, all that jazz.
Nice. How about you, Alex? How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I had a pretty fun weekend. I went to the garden and flower show with Lauren. It's become like a little tradition of ours now to go every year. It's really cool. Get to see different
Cool.
landscaping designs. I'm always confused by. I understand it looks pretty, but every time I see something with like a water feature, like those ponds or things like that, all I can think is mosquitoes and like bacteria breeding ground. I don't find it pretty. If you have more plants or something, that's just a breeding ground for like insects and bugs. So very pretty to look at. I got some bamboo. I texted my mom that I was like, oh, this is your new grandson, Bartum, the bamboo. And so new addition to our family, very handsome. And then I also saw a comedy show with my sister on Monday. Yes, Monday. Trying to figure out what day we're in. Full disclosure, audience, starting off really quick. I am a little high. Just a tad. Not much. Just enough where you're going to have to work with me some parts of this episode. But I saw some Native American comedy stars. It was a little bit of a troupe, or could you still call it a troupe if there's 4 people in it?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there were 4 comedians. I apologize, I don't really remember their names, but it was good. It was a unique experience because the last few shows I've gone to has been straight white males, So it's like it was a different level of there was a women comedian and then people of color. So it was like a nice I connect with this on so many different levels. So it made the humor so much better. And then I just like spending time with my sister because I like her as a person most of the time. Most of the time.
You saw that at the you didn't see that at the Paramount.
The Neptune.
The Neptune. Okay. Cool.
And this was the first the Neptune's this was the first time I ever did ground floor seats because the tickets were all $25, but usually I always, even if they're like cheaper or the same pricing, I usually shoot for the mezzanine because I just like the balcony area and I feel like you get to see a little more when you're not leveled with everybody. So it was the first time we were ever like on the ground floor. I did not like it.
Oh, really?
Tall dude sat right in front of me and like I had to do the thing where you keep tilting the whole show. So definitely going to be staying up on that balcony, trying to find ways. So I know I have a seating preference now.
I love that.
Well, how you doing, Jonathan?
You just gotta stand up and then just start coughing. And then when he realizes you're coughing on the back of him, he'll be like, "Ew, I need to sit down. I don't like being coughed on."
No, he was a tall dude.
I know, you cough on the back of his neck specifically. Then he feels that spittle hitting the back of his neck. He's just like, what the world going on? I need to. And then you don't want to turn around though because he don't want to get sick. He don't want to get coughed on in the face. And then he'll sit down, and that way you just stand up above him. And then you're just like, yeah, that's right.
Or I could just tilt my head because there were also people behind me. Hopefully, I can block their view, but I'm also like 5'4". 5'5" on a good day, but I'm 5'4", so I don't really block anybody's view. So I'm a nice person to sit in behind, I think.
Remember when we saw, was it Smosh?
Mm-hmm.
At the Neptune?
Yeah.
Was that at the Neptune? Yeah, it was at the Neptune.
Yeah, that was at the Neptune.
I remember we sat in the balcony, and that was fun. I remember we sat in the balcony.
If you recall any plays we've gone to, it's always been in the balcony. I've always chosen the balcony, but I was like, let me try the ground floor because, I'm always like, what's so great about the balcony? Seats were a little more tighter, so I was like, I like having seats at the end of the row too. It just makes me feel more comfortable. So I was like, ground floor has a couple seats and the row, pretty good angle, pretty good view. I hated it. You just feel very flat and centered. The balcony just promises that angle that you have just enough that you can always see over people's heads.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's good. I think it's nice to when I like to go to a lot of theater, comedy shows, like to see things, like that, to understand now that I really do have a preference. Before I was just like something like, oh yeah, I always shows. Now I know why. I absolutely know why. I have a preference for things. Finally, usually I'm very like, yeah, whatever. I don't have. Oh yeah,
also when we saw John Leguizamo, yeah, we were in the balcony as well.
Well, those I didn't choose. Those were last minute. Well, if you recall, I invited you the day of because I literally bought those tickets. They were like, hey, a couple tickets still on sale, cheap, discounted, because they were just trying to get rid of them. I was like, hell yeah. So I literally paid whatever for whatever seats. I didn't even know where we were going to be for that one. That John Leguizamo's show was fantastic. I loved it so much. That was a really good show. It was a really good show.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that was my weekend, or the last time I seen. Other than that, life's not been too exciting, I think. Yeah, things pretty chill. Work's still a lot, but I work with insurance companies, healthcare. It's always going to be a lot. I don't think there's a relaxing day there, but other than that. What about you, Jonathan? How you been doing this week?
Good. This weekend was pretty relaxing. It started raining Sunday night, and it's been raining throughout today, which has been a trend for the last few weeks. At least a few days out of the week, it has been raining, which is very unusual for LA to rain this much. But we deal with it, leaks and all. Thankfully, the ones in my apartment are all fixed, but at work, we've been dealing with them, and just the roads have been nasty. But we'll clear up soon enough. We'll get through it. The grass will be green, literally. The grass will be greener on the other side because of all the rain. Also, yeah, a really exciting thing. I opened up my mailbox last week and I got my passport. I was not expecting to get it so soon. I had sent it off. My passport's about to expire in May, and I want to travel around then. Dang, who is drag racing outside your apartment, Alex?
Who knows anymore? I'm right by a gas station, so people, as soon as they fill up gas, they're like, yeah, let me burn it. Pull out.
But anyway, yeah, I had sent my passport in a couple weeks prior, and I expedited it because I had seen so many stories. I read through Reddit to just gauge at how long people typically get their passport back when they mail it in, and people were like, yeah, I didn't do expedited, and I'm coming up on 12, 13 weeks. And I'm like, dang, it really takes that long to get your passport back? But mine took 2 weeks, and that was it. And I was so surprised. And now I have my passport, so I'm thankful for that.
You know what's
Cool.
funny is I was exactly like that when I first got my passport. I read all this stuff about it taking months and months and months. And I think I got my passport for the first time ever, mind you, like within a 6-week range. It was really, really quick. And I was like, this is cool. And then my sister got it and they actually sent her a letter. They're like, we need 14 photo identifiers because your name's too common. Which
Really?
it is. It's in Mexican culture. It is. Her name's actually like John Doe almost. So she had to send in 14 identifiers, and it took her like 2 extra months. We only found like I think 13 because we had to get yearbook. It was really weird. Who has 14 identifiers? And then
Yeah, I can't even.
and I just happily willy nilly sent it in. I was like, yeah, it's super easy. Don't even worry about it. But I'm glad you got yours so quick. Do you have an idea of where you want to go?
I do want to go to Italy. Yeah, around birthday time. But I haven't
wanna go
locked
to
anything down yet.
Paris. Although Ari wants to go to Japan this year, so that if we do travel, that's the place we're going. But then maybe next year, Paris. Because I've been before, but I was 13, so it's not like I could really do anything or go any places. We were part of a group, so it's like this. If I go now, I'll be an adult, so I can actually go to Paris and chill out and go see the sights. And I'm gonna touch up on my French, so I can actually talk to some people, especially if we get lost. You know where we're going. So yeah. But I also too need to get a new passport because my passport is far expired by now. I think my mom has my old passport.
Yeah, I had to renew mine. It's been I think more than 2 years. I don't know if that's a renewal or a new one now.
Oh, if it's expired?
Yeah, it's been expired for like 2 years. I haven't renewed it.
I think you would get a new one.
Yeah, you just get a new one.
The process might even be easier for getting a new one because I had to send in my passport, like my current passport that wasn't expired. So I was without a passport for 2 weeks, which was fine because I didn't go anywhere. But like, what if I had to leave the country for like an emergency or something?
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I should get it renewed. That should be something on my top list.
What emergency would constitute you having to leave the whole country?
You never know.
What, are you planning a heist or something? Are you getting ready to commit a heinous crime?
You never know.
You don't.
Well, you know what country we going to today? Jamaica.
Jamaica. We're going to review One Love, the movie starring Idris Elba, starring Kai Marley, daughter of Bob Marley, and also Shireen Anderson and Voss Blackwood. The description on IMDb is a Rasta musician meets a gospel singer when they both enter a music contest in Kingston, Jamaica, and they fall for each other but are kept apart by the girl's father, the pastor, who wants her to marry into the church. One Love came out in 2003, and that's the movie we're reviewing today.
I was so confused for a second. I was like, did you just read off the wrong cast list?
This is an actual. I was looking up Bob Marley One Love, and it was like, people also search for One Love, and I'm like, what the heck is this? It's another movie. Titled.
That's why you wanted to get in the description so fast. I was like, Jerome, ain't this normally my part?
Which, funny enough, this movie is like sizzling soundtrack from Bob Marley, Shaggy, and Sean Paul, and I'm like, what is this? But now knowing that his daughter is in the movie, that explains why they have some of Bob Marley's music in it.
She was the fast track approval,
I guess,
to get the songs cleared.
But this also explains why this movie is called Bob Marley: One Love, and not just called One Love, because that's totally what the title would have been.
Well, I think calling it Bob Marley: One Love also helps people identify that it's a Bob Marley
Listen,
movie.
It's not called Queen: rap, like Bohemian Rhapsody, or Whitney Houston: I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Well, One Love has a lot of meanings. I Want to Dance with Somebody does not, or Bohemian Rhapsody definitely does not. But One Love definitely has a lot of meanings, and there are a lot of songs titled One Love.
But if you know it's a Bob Marley movie.
Not have the name Whitney Houston, isn't it? Wasn't it just like somebody to dance with? I want to dance with somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just I Want to Dance with Somebody.
'Cause that one
And
should
it
have
also
probably
didn't
been.
do very well.
I didn't.
Why
even
is
see
my
it.
internet being so slow? Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Never
booty.
mind. It's because of when it was loading. Never mind. It's all good.
Okay. Well, today we are reviewing Bob Marley One Love that came out in 2024, starring Kingsley Ben-Adir as the titular Bob Marley, Lashana Lynch, James Norton, Tosin Cole, among many others. This film is a biopic about the life of Bob Marley, the story of how reggae icon Bob Marley overcame adversity and the journey behind his revolutionary music. Now, if this is your first time watching one of our episodes, one of our reviews, how we normally do it is we first go through our non-spoiler thoughts. We talk about, did we like the movie? Did we not like it? And we'll give you a warning before we go into our full-on spoiler thoughts. Although this is a biopic, so, there's that. Alex, what did you think about this movie?
I thought it was okay, but I wasn't surprised that it was okay. No, let me explain it. It's because a lot of the times when you have a biopic about a person of color who has had great influence, they tend to be okay. Like we just talked about the Whitney Houston movie. It didn't do great. And like the ones they've done about, I think the only one I can say with like confidence is the again, I did smoke, people.
You're living up your Bob Marley's legacy. You're
right.
just
See, I don't connect too much to the reggae. Last time I listened to reggae was a white men were playing reggae, and I actually ended up in the hospital with alcohol poisoning. Not really the fondest memories there. But like the movie was good. I thought the acting was pretty decent. You can absolutely tell the main actor is not Jamaican at all. Multiple times I felt like I like there were moments and scenes where I was like, I bet the director had cut and was like, you need to do it better, and this was the best they got. And it's like, eesh, it could have been better. I was a little confused to where they start off in the story, because this was, if I'm recalling correctly, already when his music career had started.
Yeah, he's already he's already Bob
like,
Marley the icon by the time this movie starts.
And he's already has.
In fact, we're close to the end of his life, but at the point of this movie,
yeah, because he died at a few years 35.
Out. Yeah, he died at 36 in 1981. Okay. This movie ends at about, I think, at like 1978 or 1979. So like he had already kind of, like it was close to the end of his career when this movie takes place.
Which is why I was also like a little confused from time to time, because they chose such a younger actor to play him, getting somebody who looked like Bob Marley, and Bob Marley had these scars and wrinkles and wears, and time had been played on his face. It had shown everything he's been through the political struggles, living in Jamaica, building his music career up, especially, during a time where racism, as always is very heavy. So the wear and the struggle is on his face. And then you have some young actor. It's like, you look nothing like Bob Marley. Bob Marley he had aged with his music career.
Well, Kingsley Ben-Adir is not young. Like he is,
he's actually older than Bob Marley was when he died.
Right. Really? Yeah. So it's he's an older guy. It's just it's the
about
hair.
To be 38.
Because if you look at like his hair when he's like his regular, like when he's just dressed up regular in his like regular clothing, he's got like salt and pepper hair. That's why he's played Obama a couple times. Because he's an older looking fella. Yeah.
Yeah, he played Obama in the one where Viola Davis was doing this as Michelle Obama.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah, but
I'm sorry. I love you, Viola Davis.
But he's an older man. Like it's just in his face he plays younger, but like if you look at his hair and stuff when he's just like out and about, he's I think he's in his 40s.
Yeah, he absolutely does not look it at all. And I kept thinking, I'm like, they should have chose at least somebody with more, I don't want to say like wear on their face, but somebody whose story's definitely been told on their face, with the wrinkles, the scars, and like the time. But I guess he's
Okay, I
just,
stand corrected. He's
great at
38.
moisturizing too.
I said that like 2 minutes ago.
You said he was older than Bob Marley, like when
And
he
then
passed
I
away.
said
You
he's
didn't say his age.
And then I said he's 37. He's turning 38 in a week.
Oh, well, he's already 38 now.
He is technically older than Bob Marley. Bob Marley did pass away when he was 36.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So technically just by a few years. But I thought it could have been better. I think it was really interesting, the story they wanted to tell. I think, my stupid phone. I think Bob Marley's story is also just a very interesting one. But there was also this weird pacing with the movie. It's almost like they took a bio-series, a mini-series, and kind of crammed it into a proper movie. It felt kind of patchy, where it's like, it just could have been structured so much better, and Bob Marley deserved better. That's my take. What about you, Jerome?
I need Hollywood to make, and this is gonna come off weird, but I think it's true. Is that
I'm
Hollywood...
sorry, 1 second. I have to interrupt. I stand corrected. He did not play Obama in the Viola Davis one.
Oh,
he did not. That was somebody else.
I need Hollywood to stop letting the families be the ones to make these movies of the person in question. They can have the right to like say whether the movie gets made or not. That's your right as a family member to the deceased famous person. But I don't think they should allow them to make the movie, because this movie feels very much, it has a lot of the same problems Selena the series had, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where this movie is like, because I don't know much about Bob Marley going into this film, as far as like, the assassination attempt, things like that. Like I knew those things happened, but I didn't know like the circumstances surrounding them of why. So on that front, I thought that was cool that we got to learn that stuff. But this movie avoids a lot of Bob Marley's past and a lot of Bob Marley's problems, because it's made by his son, Ziggy Marley. His son even introduces the movie and being like, hey, thanks for watching our movie about my dad. And I'm sure he loved his dad. I'm sure his dad loved him. But you can tell there's a lot of like watering down of this subject material because it's about his dad and he wants his dad to look a certain way in a certain light. And I say that because this movie skips over a lot. Like it's, I am a fan of a biopic about a certain artist during a certain time. In fact, another biopic coming out this year that I'm excited for is is Back to Black, the biopic about Amy Winehouse. We even got a trailer for it.
I think that comes out like next month or something.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that movie. And it's looking like it's only going to be focused on Amy Winehouse's period of time when she was making Back to Black, which is cool. Because, a lot of times when you have biopics, people get lost in the trappings of here's the rise of when they hit their stride, and here's when they discovered their one thing to make their unique sound, and here's when the drugs started and their downfall into the abyss, and now here's their rise back up to stardom, and then they died. The end. That's like every biopic does it. Bohemian Rhapsody's done it. Johnny Cash did it. Ray did it. Like, it's gotten to the point where, like, everybody does the same things. And so it's like, it's nice to have a biopic that's a little different. That's why I liked Rocket Man so much, where I was like, this is a little different. It's not quite, like groundbreaking or anything, but it's something a little more fresh for a biopic material. And I was hoping this movie would be the same thing. But I knew something was off when the movie starts with text to explain Bob Marley, like, Bob Marley's awesome and he's done all this stuff and there's political unrest. Okay, here we go. Here's the movie. And I was like, it would have been nice to see this stuff beforehand, even if it's a montage. And I think that's the biggest disservice to this movie, is that like the movie assumes who Bob Marley is and how important Bob Marley is before the movie starts. And granted, Bob Marley's famous enough, that's a fair assumption to have. But I think about like what makes a biopic work is that you are informing an audience who may not even know who this person is, and why they were important, how they became who they became. And that's the part that's missing in this film. And then I agree with you on the pacing, especially because there's times where we go to different places and different locations in this movie, and we don't know why we're there. There's no reason. There's like outside of there's one location change where they actually have a conversation of explaining why they're there. But otherwise, we just see Bob Marley doing stuff, like making his album, going to parties, whatever. And we don't get the scenes in between to explain why Bob Marley would go there, given what we know about the person, know about the man, like how he's getting wrapped up and whatever. And there's a big one in particular that I'll get to the spoilers, a part of his life they completely skip over, that I was like, I would have liked to have seen that, or at least get maybe some knowledge or something, or maybe a justification. And then performance wise though, I think everyone's okay. I like Kingsley Ben-Adir as Bob Marley. I do think though, like, because at the end of this movie we get some clips with the real Bob Marley. He does not sound like Bob Marley, like, at all. He sounds like a regular Jamaican guy. Which I think is an interesting thing, because I'm like, Bob Marley had like a raspy voice. I've never heard interview clips with Bob Marley, him just talking, until this movie. And I was like, man, that's not the voice I would expect to hear from this dude, given like his music. But so I will give you that. Kingsley Ben-Adir does not sound like Bob Marley, but I think the emotion is there. I did like his presence and stuff. I think he had a peaceful vibe to him, and that is something that Bob Marley was about as a person. And so I think he captured that very well. But Lashana Lynch is the one holding this movie up, to be quite honest. Like, as his wife Rita, she's amazing. Which, I mean, Lashana Lynch is amazing in everything, but like, she really does like do her part to keep this movie afloat. And yeah, but yeah, those are my overall thoughts. I didn't hate it. I thought it was okay, but I think there's a lot missing in this movie that could have made it amazing. And I think a lot of it is just because of the people who produced it are trying their best to kind of make it a certain type of way, and they don't want to reveal certain details. And I think that does this movie a disservice for sure. Jonathan, nice. What do you think?
First off, I want to start with the new Amy Winehouse movie, Back to Black. I didn't know who was playing Amy Winehouse, and it's Marissa Abela, I believe is how you say her name. I'm not sure. But she is in a show called Industry on HBO. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. Season 1 in particular, she is great in that. And I just got really excited because I did not know she was playing Amy Winehouse. But yes.
Looks good. I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. And as for my thoughts on One Love, I kind of echo your guys' thoughts. I thought it was okay. In kind of listening to your guys' thoughts, I realized, I wish we would have gone through more of his life. The fact that this takes place at one specific time it is in his life, and at the end of his career, when he was probably at the height of his or the end of his life and career, when he was at arguably the height of his popularity. That's the part of his life that everybody is familiar with. So I wish we would have been able to go through his early years and see how he got to become Bob Marley. I know that's the traditional way biopics typically go. So maybe they were trying to go, stray away from that and make different creative decisions. But it's Bob Marley, and you don't get many of these opportunities where you can make a big budget biopic like this. And so it kind of feels like that opportunity, we won't really get for a long time, if ever.
Especially because you can have dialogue where you just tell people what happened at the very least. If you want to stay in that time period.
Yeah.
Right. Even a good flashback. Sometimes we can appreciate a good little flashback. I know we had some of these in the movie, but they were more so having to do with the relationship between
and then the other half of the time was dream sequences, which you could have easily taken out.
Yeah, they never. I don't know why they always overdo a dream sequence. It's not necessary.
Right.
That's the new biopic thing, because James Brown had a lot of those too. So did Elvis, actually, come to think of it.
Because we have this, and I'll get into it in spoilers, but we have a big event that happens towards the beginning of the movie, and it felt like that was probably the only big major event, like dramatic event, that happens throughout the whole movie. And I would have appreciated that. I feel like Bob Marley has more of an interesting life than this movie kind of portrayed. So I wish we would have gotten to see some of those more interesting parts. I thought Kingsley Ben-Adir and Lashana Deer. I'm marrying them.
Lashana Deer. Maybe Lashana Ben-Adir.
Lashana Ben-Adir.
No, that woman has her own thing. I think she might actually have a husband. His name might be.
Sorry, y'all just had good chemistry. And Lashana Lynch, I thought they both did an excellent job, particularly Lashana Lynch. One of my main things, I saw that on AMC, this show had, at the AMC that I went to, it had an open caption showing. And I almost wish I would have gone to that, because it was a little tough to understand with some of the... I'm not
gonna lie. I saw this with Ari, and Ari was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hang around with, because she could... I could barely understand them, mostly because I'm from South Carolina, so that Caribbean accent is still there in some pieces, in certain parts of South Carolina. So I was like, I could pick up, and then eventually I just got... used to it, and I think she did too. But for the first part of the movie, it is really hard to understand everybody.
Because the Jamaican cadence, even they even reorder the words in the sentence differently. Like, I'll say an example once we get into spoilers, but because they reorder the words, you understand the sentence after the sentence has already been said, and then they're already on to another sentence. So you might miss that sentence or understand it later. So it's kind of a thing. Then you ultimately get used to it, and you can train your ear or whatever. But it was a little tough, and that's no fault of anybody's but my own, because
it's clearly a little bit their fault, because that is like a common census among a lot of people, and I agree. I have audio issues myself. So a couple times in the movie, I was like,
"See, but it's not like
I understand the context."
It's not audio issues. It's just that because it's the same thing as with The Little Mermaid, right? Where it's like if you watch the original cartoon Little Mermaid, yes, that is a cartoon Jamaican accent. It is clearly an English speaker doing an approximation of a Jamaican accent to give so that it's that you get the concept, but it's still clear enough that the average English speaker can know exactly what he's saying, every syllable, every word. Versus in the Little Mermaid remake, that is what a Jamaican accent is supposed to sound like. And it's the same thing with this movie, where it's it is hard to understand, but at the same time, that is what a true Jamaican accent sounds like. Some of these actors are Jamaican, like that's their nationality, and that is how they talk. So it's not that it's incorrect. It's that for the average English, especially because this is supposed to be a movie made, by Americans, presumably, and maybe with some Jamaican help here and there, it sounds the accents are so thick, it's hard to penetrate through. It's the same thing as someone if someone had a really thick Chinese accent or Parisian accent or whatever, where it's it's not that your English is bad, it's that it's just your accent is just so thick, it's hard to penetrate.
I'm just not used to it.
Yeah, I'm not used to hearing it.
And that's nobody's fault or anything. I don't blame. I don't think the movie is worse because of that. It's just, it caught me off guard. I wish I would have gone to the open caption show.
It's something to know for sure, especially for people who because for me, like I said, I have a little bit of background in hearing Caribbean accents, just from where I grew up, and then also to even taking a cruise to the Bahamas one time when I was little. So it's I know the accent, so it was easier for me to pick up some of the things. But for Ariana, she's not. And so for her, it was a lot harder for a little bit until she got used to it. And so it's like, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who watch this movie who especially have not heard Jamaican accents or, know nothing about Jamaica are probably going to have a hard time. Especially when they throw in Jamaican colloquialisms too, like "bumba" or "bumba clock." Like it's going to get even more confusing. It's like, what did they just say?
No, I agree, and I did have issues with it as well. I'm not very good. I haven't been exposed to Jamaican accents very much in my life, so yeah, some of the things I did have a problem with. But I could still tell when somebody was faking a Jamaican accent. That's how unique a Jamaican accent is. I feel like at times that you can automatically tell when you're like, oh, you're definitely faking that. Even I'm not used to this dialect, but I can hear it.
So should we get into spoilers?
Yeah, so audience, we're about to get into the spoilers for Bob Marley One Love. I mean, you could always just go to a Wikipedia page and see these spoilers yourself if you'd like. But if you don't want any spoilers
Type
at
in
all,
Bob Marley biography.
Yeah. Go ahead and pause this. Go watch the movie. Come back. Tell us what you thought. But we're going to go full blown. I think I'm going to start here because one of the major things I feel like this movie could have thrown in, and they only mention it in one line, but I feel like it was important. And I know the reason it was omitted is because Ziggy Marley was in charge of the production on this, which is that why the hell didn't they talk about Bob Marley's many women and many children?
That's exactly what we wanted to talk about, because after you said, I thought about that when I was watching the movie. I was like, didn't he have a lot? And I even looked it up. I was like, you had
this
many
man has
children.
11 children from, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, two of them are, I think 1 or 2 of them are adopted, but the women involved are like Rita, Pat Williams, Janet Hunt, Janet Bowen, Lucy Pounder, Anita Belnaves, and Cindy Breakspear. And it says, and then another child from Rita's affair, who's not his child, but he adopted them with another dude.
Because there is a scene where the two of them are fighting, Rita and Bob Marley, and she mentions all these other kids, but they're never mentioned again anywhere else. And then when you're like, oh, the son had involvement with the film, I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense, because we've seen bioprojects like that where they ignore basically the bastard children.
The bastard.
Yeah, because he only ever mentions Ziggy in name, even in the movie, in the script. Every time they ask about the children, he's like, how's Ziggy doing? And I'm like, you're not going to, and anybody else is just like, how are the kids? Oh, they're good. It's like, and how's Ziggy? He's good. I'm like, why would he name specifically Ziggy and not everybody else?
Well, and once we get to that part that you were talking about, Alex, where they're fighting, it kind of doesn't feel like there was much of a lead up to it. It doesn't feel like it was as earned, because she does say, you get to be off with all these women or whatever she says. And I have to just sit here and help you out and be behind the scenes and stuff. And I feel like if we would have gotten a good representation of that throughout the movie, you would have felt her frustration a little bit more. But because we didn't, she has good reason to be upset, but I felt like we could have felt it a little bit more had we seen it in the movie prior.
Especially because like Cindy Breakspear is there. One of his other women is there. She's one of the backup singers. In fact, there's a scene where Bob's on the phone with Rita, and there's like a whole focus on Cindy watching him be on the phone, and then she has a little bit of an attitude, and then she walks up. That's it. That's the only time we ever really see, because otherwise she's always in the background giving Rita looks, but you never know why or what her deal is. And it's because they never explain to you, that's one of the other women who he's had children with, and she lives in the compound with them.
It's so interesting that you can tell when an artist's child has definitely had influences, because they'll project the marriage as so much more better. But a lot of the major arguments that happen between musicians, artists in general, and their spouses help curve the way of like, is this marriage still intact? How their career is influenced, all this stuff. Those marital spouses have such big factors. that they can't pretend they didn't exist. So then it leads to this weird situation. Yeah, we all knew, and they kind of hint at a mistress and other children, but it almost looks like they're a good couple. Rita deserves so much better than what she got, doing everything she did. And then all of a sudden it's like this huge argument, and it's like, well, I understand the reason for the argument and how it affected his life and a career in music and moving forward. And they needed that fight. But at the same time, clearly your parents' marriage was not good, man.
Well, I can believe that things were amicable, because Jamaican culture is a little different than the States, where it's like if you cheat on somebody, like that's it. Like in Jamaican culture, much like a lot of African culture, it's like when you're married, you're married. Like you cheat, you deal with it. But you stay together, you make it work. Is the idea, and so I can believe that from Ziggy's perspective. His parents probably did seem like they were still cool with each other. Maybe not like happy necessarily, but still like amicable in a relationship where like when Rita's like, hey, Bob needs my help, I'll be there.
And in a lot of Caribbean and African cultures, polygamy, it's just another Tuesday.
True. So I can believe that Rita wasn't because as Americans, she would be, and like most women would be pissed. But I can believe that, like, knowing Jamaican and African culture, I can believe that she was like, I'm not cool with it, but this is the man I married. I still love you. So I'm still going to be here for you. I'm still going to, like cook for you or whatever. If you need a meal, like I'm still going to support and I'm still going to be here. But I don't think, so I don't think his mom would probably like Rita would see it as like, I had a bad marriage as much as it's like I had a marriage with problems. I guess is the way to describe it.
No, I agree with that, because I think I was looking at it through a more American lens, because like it's heavy. That's heavy too in Latin cultures, where I know family members exactly with this way. My own grandfather was a lot like Bob Marley. He did God's work and helped repopulate a little bit. So I understand totally looking at it from the Latin culture, but I guess I was more looking at it more through the American lens of like, I would have hit him with a frying pan and left.
I mean, she did smack the taste out of his mouth that one time.
She did.
Like on the street. She's like, get your goddamn hands on me. Pow!
Fair enough, she did.
So he earned it. He earned it. He was tripping. Oh, yeah. Straight up. He was tripping.
So speaking
I
of
agree
violence,
with you though, of like Jonathan, of like, the epicness is not there. Sorry.
Yes. Well, that was gonna kind of lead to my thing, where a big event towards the beginning of the movie where he gets shot. He survives, obviously. And that kind of shapes how he moves.
Which those assassins were trash too. It's like, you want to kill Bob Marley. He is like, I shot him once, y'all, and then I unloaded the rest of the clip into this other dude. Okay, well, did you check to make sure he was dead? What? You didn't check to bother to check to make sure he was dead? And then on top of that, not only did he not kill Bob Marley, the dude he shot 6 times he didn't even kill. Hell, Lashana Lynch survived. Everybody survived. Nobody died.
I almost wish that part in the movie would have happened towards like the climax or
like the middle
something. Yeah, because it felt like a major part of his life that would have had a good. I felt like they could have built a good lead up to that.
Especially because it's supposed to be it's supposed to be the I think the title is The Rising Action. I think I don't know. I haven't looked at the hero's journey in a long time, but it's supposed to be the thing that gets Bob to like go down the path of like being like, oh man, I got to get out of here. I got to change up some things. But the problem is that you don't get any insight into Bob's like headspace on that. Like you kind of do, with like some looks, and he goes to talk to the other Rastafarian guy who's like his pastor or whatever, and he's like, yeah, man, Bob, like some crazy stuff's about to happen, man. You're gonna do big things, like something big's waiting for you. And then Bob has a look, and then we cut to London, and he's just like, hey, I want to do something different with my album. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, how did you come to that decision?
How did we get here?
How did we get here? Like, and that's the problem with the movie is they kind of skip a lot of
That's why I was like,
scenes.
it has the feel of like a bio series.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where like all of a sudden the next episode we're in this completely different location. How'd I get here? I don't know. But technically it's not the same as the last episode. So that's why I was like, this kind of has this. I feel like this almost would have done better as a bio series, and they would have had time to space out some more things, kind of show why he was going to London or how he ended up there. I guess after everything, and like just a little more time to flesh out certain events they seem to have wanted to show in the movie, but weren't presenting correctly.
Yeah, especially because that assassination attempt, especially, is like, it's supposed to be like this big moment. It feels like we kind of just skate by it real quick.
Yeah.
And then
all of a sudden he's out of the hospital and well. Like next scene, literally he's out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And well.
And it's just there's a lot of like, especially when they like even making the album, like we get one scene where Bob is like, no, don't play the drums that way, play the drums this way, and they get a new guitarist, and he's great. And then they just make the album. The next scene, like the next couple of scenes, we get a little bit of jamming, which again, I think that's the biggest thing about this movie is that I think the music. First of all, you got Bob Marley's music, so it's gonna be great in general.
Yeah,
but they kind of want to use the music as an excuse to be like, see, he made music. And it's like, okay, again, this is a biopic in a very specific point in his life, which means you have time. This movie is only an hour and 47 minutes. You have time to maybe show the writing process. What did Bob Marley do that made the album sound different and feel different? Because like you look at something like a Bohemian Rhapsody, I still don't think that movie is great. But the one thing that movie nailed down very well is that it made it very clear how Queen changed over the years and changed up their sound and what things led them to want to change up a different sound. Like we get the stuff with when they're making Bohemian Rhapsody and they go to this farm and they just like experiment and play around with some ideas and they try opera and stuff like that. Then we go into the disco era and Freddie's like, oh man, we need a disco sound. Like we need to change things up. And they make Another One Bites the Dust. And then we see them do the stomp stomp clap for
We Will Rock You.
We Will Rock You. Like we see the thought process that led to making these iconic songs that we know and love. This movie needed that. And instead they just play the iconic songs that we know, but you don't see what they did differently to get there or whatever, or anything, or any process. So it makes these scenes feel hollow. Because it's like, I love the music. I'm liking what I'm seeing. The visuals are great. Cinematography is beautiful. But I don't know why we're seeing what we're seeing because the motivation for the scene's not there. And because the motivation's not there, the amount to care is not there. Cheddar, it's just like, look at my tail. Look at my nubbins.
It's almost like this movie takes place in such a short specific amount of time, but they don't spend the right amount of time in the right places during that amount of time. It's almost like they were trying to get every aspect of what happened in this period of time versus focusing on the most important aspect of that period of time and just fleshing that out. They wanted to spread it a little bit too thin, which is interesting because since it takes place in such a short amount of time, you would think that they would master that amount of time, but they don't really. They really skipped over some things that they shouldn't have.
Yeah, especially because like we get that dream sequence with the fire in the field, and then he gets picked up by that one Rastafarian guy, and I think he's supposed to be Rastafarian, and he picks him up, takes him on his horse, and it's like at no point do we get an explanation for what this dream is? In the sense of like Bob Marley maybe talking to Rita and being like, I keep having this dream or this thought about this like field that's on fire and yada yada. Or even if they don't, like, because it's like, because they want to do something like Get On Up did the same thing with James Brown, where there's a sequence where he's like a boy and he's running through the woods. But the difference is that with James Brown, they had set up that James Brown as a kid, like, was always trying to run away from like his home when he was little. And so it kind of plays into this idea of like, is it reality? Is it not? Like, is this a dream sequence or is this a memory? You know, playing around with those ideas. Even Elvis did the same thing too, where we know it's kind of his past, but there's also a dreamlike element to it to make it a little more surreal. Here, they don't set that up. The little bit of stuff we get with him as a little boy, he's like chilling with his mom. And then the rest of the flashbacks are him as like more or less like a young adult to like, you know, in his like late 20s. So it's this weird dream sequence that comes up and it feels like it's just taking up time that we could have used to maybe show some of the rise of Bob Marley, like how he became famous, how he got discovered, like what songs put him on the map. Any of that stuff would have been good to see. Because if like, you know, I don't think the problem is that they're in this time period and they're trying to just capture these few years of Bob Marley's life. I think that's fine. It's just they don't do the most to maximize, like Jonathan was saying, to maximize like the concept from there of like really utilizing that time and letting us get to, because normally when biopics do that, because Selma did the same thing. Selma's Martin Luther King's time period in Selma exclusively. We don't see like, you know, the bus boycott and all those other things. I Have a Dream speech. Like none of that's in there. It's just when he went to Selma. So we spent a lot of time learning about the minute details of why he went to Selma, what was happening at that time, important stuff like that. So it's like, you know, when you're not dealing with the macro life of a person, you're dealing with the micro points of their life. That's when you focus on micro details. Give us everything.
It could have been a bit longer.
Yeah,
it could have. I wouldn't have minded. Because honestly, when they go to the One Love concert, and then he's like, "Yeah, let's go," and then it cuts to black, and then we get text of like, Bob Marley was really great, and he died due to cancer Thursday. I'm like, I'm sorry, is the movie over? I'm expecting more movie. I was like, I even looked at Ari. I was like, "Oh, the movie's over." I thought there was going to be more. I was really prepared for more movie.
And then they showed like the actual footage and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool to get to see the concert, like the actual One Love concert.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's a thing where I'm like, I would have, at the very least, like, especially because they made a big deal about how they built this One Love set, and it looks just like the One Love, like, actual concert stage. And then also they got Bob Marley's actual jacket, or they made a replica of the jacket, and it's like, it looks perfect and everything. I'm like, they made a big deal about that in the behind the scenes, and then they didn't use it. They didn't film it. It's not even in the movie. Not really. So it's just like, okay, I guess the movie's over then. Although I thought it was nice to see Bob Marley angry. That's a visual I thought I'd never get when he was just whooping that dude's ass. Yeah, he was beating up the
dude, almost threw a chair at him.
He was like, hold on. He was like, yeah. He's like, well, I ain't got nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for it. I'm about to get you about to have an ass whooping to show for it. Come here, mother. Throw this chair at you.
But then at the end, he daps up the guy who tried to murder him.
Listen, that's different. All right. Like that guy clearly lied to Bob Marley. He was trying to take advantage of him. The assassination guy, first of all, he's like, first of all, you didn't kill anybody. So I guess, all things considered, it's all good. But also,
it evens out.
It evens out. But also, he came humbly just to be like, hey, man, I'm really sorry I shot you and your friend and your wife. And maybe, who knows? Maybe Bob only knows about him. He's like, well, you shot me, and that's okay. Yes, I shot you, and only you. Nobody else.
Bob Marley is better than me.
See, I was prepared for it. Like, if it were me, I'd be like, hey, it's all good, man. Yo, bring it in. Bring it in. Get a hug. Little does he know I have the kitchen knife. And then the second he gets in, I'm like, ah. You came, I was like, and I'd just be like, where's your God now? Sit and just let him die on the floor.
Turn into a Jamaican John Wick.
Basically. He'd just be out here bleeding. And then it'd be like, Bob, we need to get him to the hospital. No, if you take him to the hospital, he won't learn. Let him lay there.
Take him to the hospital. That feels like something out of our childhood.
Like, you didn't take me to the hospital. All right, he shot me. And what's his face? And he'll be fine.
I feel like this movie could have done so much more had they focused a lot more on the politics that were going on and how his music were so intertwined with it.
Very true. Because they do mention the British thing, but they don't flesh that out at all. And
there's this one press interview in the movie where, they're talking about, when they're talking to him, they're like, yo, you're going to have to kind of pick a side. He's like, I'm not picking a side. I'm not in this. This isn't my fight. And it's kind of reflects heavily right now on today's artists, musicians, and actors who, like, some are picking sides, but others are like, I'm neutral with what's going on in the world. I don't really have a say. It's like, no, you're kind of in the public eye. People are watching you. You have some power over the people. Like, unfortunately, you do have to pick a side. And if you choose silence, it's kind of still the wrong side. And Bob Marley,
because remember when
kind of showed that, where he was just like, oh, I'm here to make music. It's like, yeah, but your music has now reached both heads of the political parties that were in conflict. Like, you have power, you have sway, you have some ability, and the fact that you're not using it was mind-boggling. And I felt like, I don't know if it would help the movie or not, but just it would definitely have a heavier message then, instead of like what they were trying to do now, where it felt like almost they were using the political conflicts as like mini points in this movie.
There's background.
Like, this movie had this weird vibe of like getting mixed between like, this is the artist and his struggle. Oh, this is the artist and the political conflict he was in. And then this is the artist and the life he had at home. It's like this weird merger of all three of them. And none of them are reflecting enough on one or the other. They're just so equally mushed up together. You don't really know what type of movie you should be watching. And it doesn't really speak to how, like, Bob Marley started his music or, the journey he was on. It's a weird, mushed up movie of different points in a short time span, but different points. But it's also a good example of how many different things an artist can go through and how quickly things change within, like, a year span. And, all the major life events an artist may go through could seem like endless to us. Like, oh yeah, I remember when they went through this. It was only last week for them. And now they have to go through something else. So that actually was kind of a good reflection on that, about the passage of time and the constant major events that are occurring in artists' life, especially when they're so heavily put in the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah. With this movie, you know what it is? If they wanted to do the thing where this movie is supposed to focus on a certain period of time in his life, they should have picked the time before this. Like, they should have picked, like, in the middle where he's, like, maybe, like, the rise of Bob Marley leading up to him deciding to do this concert. Because, like, after, like, because he decides to do this concert, and then after that, according to this movie, life just happened. He made another album, and then he did the concert. That's pretty much it. Like, it nothing... like all the special stuff of maybe the conflict that would arise, because he had, kids with Rita. Then he started having the affairs. That conflict, we don't have that here. So, like, we don't get to see, like, Rita's process of her reconciling with that and still deciding, I'm still going to be a Bob Marley or whatever. That would be some drama that would be good to see. We don't see the decision he made to make his first album. We don't see him putting together his group, like putting together the Wailers and earning a lot of respect in Jamaica, especially with the fandom and stuff, and becoming like that legend in local Jamaica. Like, we don't get any of these things that are the most interesting parts of Bob Marley's journey and his life.
Because he is the biggest artist to ever come out of Jamaica, and I feel like that wasn't really portrayed that well in the movie. There were some scenes where you have like the fanfare and people, like the one where people are mobbing the car. But other than that, You have the concert, and that's about it.
Especially because he also, like, because it's like, I get it. Exodus is a really great album. It's one of the greatest albums of all time. And it's like, on top of that, it's really important for Bob Marley himself as a person. But like, it's like, you know, you gotta pick it. That's why I say, like, they shouldn't. I think we've hit a point. Stop letting people involved in whatever the biopic is about being on the production side of it. Because I say it that way because Bohemian Rhapsody had the same problem because the band was in charge of making the movie. Like, they chose to make the movie. And so they were the ones on the production side. And again, it was like a lot of shit was omitted, and you could clearly tell because they wanted the band to look like, to be portrayed in a certain light.
Yeah.
Except for Freddie,
Also,
who's not alive to defend himself and say, well, no, that's not how it happened. This is how it happened. And it's like, no, this is how it happened. And no one can argue.
just accept it. No one can argue. Also, I think I knew this, but I wasn't quite sure. When I watched the movie, I was like, oh, did y'all know Bob Marley was biracial?
I did not know that, but I mean, it makes
okay,
sense.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad I'm not alone. Okay.
Wait, why does it make sense?
Because the British like control of Jamaica, there was a lot of interracial kids during that time. And there's a lot of racism. It's kind of the same thing with like Trevor Noah, for example, where Trevor Noah grew up in a time where it was literally illegal for him to walk the same street as one of his parents because of the racism and stuff. But there were plenty of kids that had that experience. Because interracial relationships was very much a thing at the time. Now, granted, in Bob Marley's case, his dad was just a piece of shit who just like slept with his mom and then was just like, all right, bye, I'm out. But like that was a very common thing in Jamaica around that time, around like British rule, and in all the countries, India, Jamaica, Africa, like all like you know bigger parts of Africa, like it's all like so it's a very common thing. But I didn't know Bob Marley was one of them. I just thought he was light skinned. I didn't know he was biracial.
Same.
But I mean, hey, you know, like, he was all about his people though. He didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I don't care if people give me a hard time because I'm biracial. Which that's another thing that he mentions it. It never comes up that like he's having problems because people don't give him the time of day because he's biracial. Like when he's younger, like that doesn't come up either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was kind of interesting how him and Rita both bonded like as kids because he was biracial and people made fun of him because of that, and then she was dark skinned and people made fun of her because of that, and they both bonded on kind of being like outsiders, so to speak, from their like communities, I guess.
Now, I think the one thing this movie nails, though, more than anything else, it nails the religious aspect. Because I don't know much about Rastafarian culture, and let alone Bob Marley's specific religious preferences. And this movie nails it. I think it really does it doesn't give you like a whole breakdown of like this is what Rastafarian is, and this is like all this history. It doesn't do that, but it does give you a good sense of what Rastafarian beliefs are, like how they conduct themselves, how they see themselves in relation to God, in relation to other people, and why, you know, Rastafarian culture is so important to them and all those things. And I thought that was really cool to see, to have like because, you know, I don't imagine any other movie getting this detailed with Rastafarian culture. So it's it was really cool to see that, and I'm glad that this movie did decide to go deeper into those aspects of Bob Marley and his wife too, of like, you know, why Rastafarian culture was important to him, and how it influenced his music in a lot of ways, and was involved. Because I remember growing up, like that was my dad's big thing. Because I got introduced to Bob Marley through my dad, and he had a greatest hits, Bob Marley greatest hits album, and he was just telling me about how cool Bob Marley was, and he was talking about how, like all of the like God and religious aspects of his music and stuff. And you know, growing up in a Christian household, it's like, okay, cool, Bob Marley's on the list, he's cool. And so it's like it was really cool to see that, and I'm glad they did that for sure.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Any
See,
final thoughts?
It's hard to
It
review
seems-
this movie because it's like this movie has like it's
You
like
can't criticize like plot points or anything on this movie because it's a biopic.
well
Mhm.
also like it's more that it's not so much criticizing the plot points, more just criticizing the fact that like the movie is like bare bones when it comes to like meat and potato. So there's not a lot to talk about as far as like, well, this doesn't make sense. This goes to this because the stuff that wouldn't make sense or would make sense to get to this point isn't there. It's gone. So it's just you're just left
And
with
it's
like the
also-
moments.
And
They don't
it's-
focus on anything people would want. I feel like people would want a Bob Marley movie to focus on solely. Either, like I said, the political conflict that was going on in Jamaica and his influence and everything like that. That would be an astounding story to tell right now, especially with what's going on. To have a movie like that and to have an artist who is so powerful, who is known, for constantly preaching about peace. And there's also like the fact that I didn't know he was half black either, or the situation that was going on in Jamaica. You could have done a whole movie on that because a lot of the times I bring up, all the other people of color biopics and docuseries and all that stuff. They never actually focus on how it can be sometimes within your own culture of being light skinned or being too dark. When I was younger, I was much darker skinned, and I used to get made fun of it all the time. And that was something that's always like really stuck with me. It's one of the reasons, I stopped going out into sun so much, and I allowed my skin to lighten. And as an adult, that still affects me. It makes me sad. That is such a important moment in my life, and I know a lot of people in Latin culture can relate. And so it's like there are so many aspects of Bob Marley's life that I would love to focus on and learn because he is such an amazing artist. I don't really like listen to reggae. It's not really my style, but like I can listen to Bob Marley all day because his music has just such passion and such strong message in everything he sings. And I just feel like, again, it's like this with every POC docuseries, biopic. It's just they just focus on these pinpoint moments of the artist's life, ones you well know, and they go maybe a little bit deeper or something, but they never give us like, we want to know the artist at their core, at their surface, and see like what's there compared to like, well, yeah, I know what happened here. I know how this person met their partner. I know their relationship wasn't great, but like you had mentioned earlier about, the cultures with a lot of African Jamaican and again Latin, where it was completely okay for the man to go and have like multiple children with multiple women, and how the differences when you're looking at it through like an American lens, like I said it was. So I feel like this movie could have been so much more, but again, we are left with something that was just like, meh. It was cool to see part of Bob Marley's story up on that screen, but like there's so much more I could have learned about him up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Alex, you kind of gave your final thoughts in that beautifully said message, but what's your grade?
I'm gonna give it a C. Wasn't bad. It wasn't great. I'm glad that I went to see it. Of course, the music is fantastic. So at least you're gonna get that. You're gonna get some good music out of this movie.
Yeah,
Listening to the soundtrack of it. So like, I think it was still enjoyable, and it makes you do want to learn more about Bob Marley, because this was only just like such little part of his career. He's had such a long career and long life, so it'd be cool to learn more about him.
For sure. Jerome, final thoughts, grade?
I think this movie has been done a serious disservice. I know I keep using that word, but it's true. I think, and I say that because who knows the next time we're going to get another Bob Marley biopic. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be like the Steve Jobs situation where like Ashton Kutcher's Steve Jobs movie came out and then Michael Fassbender's Steve Jobs movie came out. And it's like, if you looked at both those movies, you got two different versions of Steve Jobs, but I bet both of them were Steve Jobs as a person. You know what I'm saying? Like, because people are two things can be true at the same time. People can be, harsh and mean, or, very, or focused, or type barbaric, or whatever word you want to describe them, and still be in other moments sweet and compassionate and inspiring. And it's like, that's what makes a person, is that they have so many sides to them. And with Bob Marley, you could tell that he has a lot of sides to him. Like, he's like, the man's life is not, by what we would define like perfect. Like, yes, he had multiple women. Yes, he had multiple kids. And that's kind of shitty that he did that to his wife, that he would step out on his marriage like that. But at the same time, he also was the guy who believed in peace and unity and loved everybody. He loved his kids equally. We see that even with Rita, where he adopted her kid from another marriage before they got together, and adopted the child she had during an affair within his marriage. He still was like, yeah, that's my kid too. Bring them on over. Like, this is the type of person who has so much love in his heart for the world and everyone around him, and put it into his music. And so there's like two things can be true at the same time. And I feel like this movie misses a lot of moments to really show Bob Marley the man, not Bob Marley the dad that I love so much, and that's why I made this movie, or Bob Marley the amazing musician, or Bob Marley the legend. Like, Bob Marley the person who has flaws and didn't do everything right, but he still was deep down a good man, great musician, and an icon for a reason. And I wish this movie had really dived into a lot more moments in Bob Marley's history, into his life, because the problems with this movie is that it's just lacking in a lot of areas, as far as like really giving us the reasons for why Bob Marley does a lot of things he does in this film. Well, speaking of this film specifically, the performances are good. I can't complain. I think, it's just because of the script's moments, like they don't get a lot of time to really like dive in. We only ever get really 2 to 3 really good, like dramatic scenes where something really dramatic is happening, and we get to see a different side. Because otherwise, Bob Marley's cool pretty much most of the movie, except for when he's stomping that one dude out. Him and Rita have a small fight. And when Bob is really sad and he's like talking about, and he's sitting in his, after he finds out he has cancer. Those are it. That's it. The rest of the moments of the movie, he is A-okay, chilling. I guess when he gets shot, but even then, like, it's like you would think he'd have a bigger reaction when his wife's dead. And he's just like, oh man. Like, it's like, not that he doesn't, like, inside he doesn't feel turmoil, but we don't get that from Kingsley's performance. We just get, I'm sad she's shot. I don't want to leave. I'm gonna go to America anyway. Okay, bye. Like, it's very underplayed. And it's not his fault necessarily, but it's just like, I just wish there was more. I wish there was more in so many ways in this movie. That's the biggest criticism I can give this movie. So, but for all the other things I said that I like, I'm giving this movie a C-. I think it's fine enough, and like you said, Alex, it does encourage, like, I hope that it will get more people to want to know more about him and just do their own research after they watch this movie, because it reminds me a lot of like Judas and the Black Messiah in that way, where we don't get a lot of time with Fred Hampton, but after watching that movie, I was like, oh man, I want to look more into Fred Hampton. I want to find out more about this guy, because this movie made him so interesting. But that movie was better because it actually gave us sides of this person, and I wish this movie had done the same thing. So, it is what it is. Hopefully we'll get another Bob Marley biopic one of these days, and we'll get like an actual deep dive into who Bob Marley was, how he became the icon that we love, and all these things. But who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, like we've been saying on the episode, I definitely wish this would have dived deeper into his background, how he came to be the icon legend that he is. I think that would have been a little bit more of a compelling story for me. I think that's whenever I watch a biopic, I like seeing how they got to rise to become who they are. I think that's the relatability. That's the inspiration that people can enjoy when they watch these types of movies. It's like they went from this person to become this person, and I think that's where we connect with the person the most when we're watching their story. So I wish we would have gotten a little bit of that, because we kind of just jumped right into his life as the name Bob Marley without kind of earning a little bit of that in getting more of his life before. We didn't talk about this on the episode, but it was visually apparent to me while watching the movie. The wig was a little stiff.
At times, yes. It didn't move when he moved. At times.
I thought his locks would have flowed a little bit better, but you know what? Yeah. The wig was a little stiff.
Although that one Rastafarian dude that had them dreads that he was wearing basically like a cape, I was like, God damn,
him over his shoulder.
Those are some dreads.
Now those were real. I believe those were real.
Oh, definitely. I think that was his real hair for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is it just because I was comfortable wearing it?
Because he was comfortable with them. He was comfortable with those.
Just, I wonder if in dramatic moments he's like, I told you what I said. I said what I said. throw the dread over his side. Walk off. Like as when he spins it, it's like a trench coat. Just the dreads just flop over like a jacket.
He's an air for drama. I love it.
But I think maybe a little bit more than you guys. I did enjoy Kingsley's performance a good amount. I also enjoyed Lashana Lynch, and I thought they did a good job. And I felt like they obviously casted authentically Jamaican people, versus the two leads weren't, but I felt like a good majority of the cast was. So I applaud them on that front, in that they didn't just get a whole bunch of American and British people and tell them put on Jamaican accents. You could tell there was authenticity there.
Yeah, and they say Kingsley actually did an interview talking about that, where he was like, he felt like he did have a little bit of apprehension, because he's like, I don't want to be the British guy who's playing this Jamaican icon. And but he said Ziggy was the one who kind of gave him his blessing and made him feel more comfortable playing the character.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm glad.
Yeah, because he said he was the best one that auditioned.
Yeah. So like, and I think that's really cool that he had that moment to just like take it seriously, because you get a lot of actors that are like, I'm doing this role because I need the money. I don't care about the cultural significance. And so it's nice to have an actor who's like, no, I see the cultural significance. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try my best. But I do see that, like, it's a little, I do feel a certain type of way that, you know, being a British man, like, I'm not Jamaican.
Yeah.
Right. With that being said, I'll probably give it a B-, B for Bob. And yeah, because it was okay. It was okay for me. Yeah, it was all right.
I'm just hoping that'll just jumpstart people's desire to learn about Bob Marley and the impact and influence he has, and he kind of still has to this day with his music. Because if anybody ever thinks, about peace, honestly, they think about Bob Marley.
Yeah. Exactly. I'd say this is a good. Watch this when it comes out on demand or on streaming, and just put it on in the background, maybe even while you're folding clothes, and just have a good time.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. There's no reason to see this in theaters. And
yeah.
Like, it's like, especially because it's not like we're getting a Bob Marley One Love 2 anytime soon. You know what I'm saying?
Two Love.
Like, so it's like there's no reason to see this in theaters. I would say, wait till this comes out on streaming. Watch in the comfort of your own home, unless you just really want to hear Bob Marley's music over the sound of like
that was good.
theater speakers. Like that's the only reason I would say if you really want to hear it in like a theater setting,
that was good.
Then go. But otherwise, there's no reason to watch this in a movie theater. You could easily just watch this at home.
Exactly.
And get the same enjoyment out of it, I feel like. Did you give it a grade, Jonathan?
Yeah, I said B-.
Oh, okay.
B for Bob. Shout out to Ziggy Marley. Without him, we would have never gotten the Arthur theme song. So shout out to him.
I always forget that, and it still blows my mind. It's crazy. Right? I love it, but it's crazy.
Oh, speaking of like old shows coming back from like people's childhood, also we got the new X-Men 97 trailer too. So you know it's gonna be like we're gonna have a bunch of people now in their houses here. Just it's a classic. Love that theme song.
I've been watching an old show recently, MASH. I don't know how I got like there. But one day I just started playing it and I was like, I remember that. I watched it when I was a kid. As an adult.
You know the finale of MASH is the most watched episode of TV ever?
I feel like that record's broken, no?
Not now, because nobody watches TV anymore.
That's true, nobody watches it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
finale.
True. Like, because I was going to say, I feel like that record's broken by probably stuff like Game of Thrones or something. But then at the same time, who knows, like that, like, I don't know if people were watching. Well, no, people were watching that on TV at the time.
Yeah, they had
but not like live at the same time.
Well, yes and no.
Yeah, that's the part of it, yeah. It was like,
who watches stuff
at the same time?
Yeah,
MASH finale view. How many viewers did they have? 106 million viewers.
Just like at the same time.
In 1983. A record that not only eclipsed other broadcasts up to that point, but one that hasn't occurred again since.
And it was a series finale or like just in general?
For comparison, Game of Thrones did 13.6 million viewers in its finale.
Gotcha.
Sorry, what'd you say, Alex?
I was just like, that's the series finale, right?
Yeah, it was the series finale of MASH.
And it's still, to this day, it currently is still MASH. Yeah.
It is, I mean, I've only watched the first few episodes, and I remember liking it a lot when I was a kid, and it being funny because I used to love, on TV Land, I used to love watching the old shows, and that was one of the ones that came on, after 10 p.m. because it had violence. But it's really fun to watch again, and all the characters are different, but the same as I remember them.
Granted, that's for like a scripted television show. The ones like, because the Apollo moon landing had the most viewers on television at the same time. And then also, as far as sporting events, apparently Super Bowl is at 40, I think, or I don't know. But in 2017, it's the largest total viewership for for part of the broadcast, not the whole thing, for U.S. television. So it's like for a TV show, yes, MASH is the leader by a wide margin.
Either way,
and probably it'll stay that way because with streaming coming out, I think it won't count.
Yeah, they don't count like they used to anymore. Hell, I'm even watching MASH again. They're adding numbers to that series finale, being like of who watched it. I'm helping out again.
They're about to be at 107 next year.
Cheddar's ears look so big right now. They look huge. What is going on?
All right. Well, listen.
Socials.
So Bob Marley One Love. Tell us below audience what you think.
Huge.
If you saw it, did you love it? Did you hate it? Comment below. Tell us what you think. But yeah, socials. Jonathan, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jonathan Keys on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you please. You can also follow us. It's plain. At The First Ones to Die on all of your favorite social platforms. You can email us, thefirstones2die@gmail.com. We would appreciate any questions, comments, feedback. You can also leave us feedback if you review us and rate us on your favorite podcast audio platform. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. Also comment below. What did you think of Bob Marley One Love if you've seen it? Alex.
You can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok, and the podcast TikTok, The First Ones to Die, where I post little clips of the episodes, old episodes, new episodes, things we may do in the future, as well as some sometimes I watch movies and make commentaries and like to drag y'all in with screw English right now. I'm coming down a little bit. But come join us there. What about you, Jerome?
You can find me at Jerome on Instagram. And also, speaking of the YouTube channel, you got to go over there and check out some of this extra content that you cannot get on the audio streaming platform. Stuff like mini reviews, book reviews, gaming content, vlogs, other things. And we're going to be posting more stuff this year. We got big plans for 2024. So trust me, you do not want to miss this extra content that's coming out. We're still putting out episodes of Monster Camp. So be on the lookout for part 4 coming soon. We also got other stuff we're going to be putting out as far as new mini reviews. So again, I'm telling you, you're going to want to be subscribed. So please subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's going on. And also, like, comment, share, all those things that you know to do. Tune in next week for Dream Girls, Boys Who Make You Happy. Like, tune in. You might hear some singing.
And
you might hear some jams.
Tune in for the Dream Girls Challenge.
So yeah, next week we're doing a retro review of Dream Girls.
Terrifying.
Have you guys seen that on TikTok though?
I have not, but that's like Silicon Valley thing you just did there. I do not want to. I am not in the good state of mind to look at that stuff.
Well, you'll know when you watch the movie, because you'll know when you watch the movie, and you'll be like, "That's the Dream Girls Challenge."
Yep, not liking that.
Tune in next week where we talk about Dream Girls. It's gonna be a fun time. If you know, we've done many musical retro reviews, and they are all fun, so you're not gonna want to miss this one. But other than that, until then, have a good week, night, morning, whenever you're listening to this, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Peace.
Bye.